Hello, my beautiful people, and welcome to yet another episode of the Rise to More, newly branded. I'm so excited. And today we have a really special guest, someone that I have heard about for many years now, and someone whose food I have eaten for many years without even knowing her. She's more than a celebrated chef. She's a cultural storyteller, a former refugee who turned survival into mastery, and a James Beard-nominated pioneer reshaping how America understands the culture of Laos. Anne Ahmed is the owner of Kaluna, Gai Noi, and Laat 14. And if you are living in Minneapolis area, you know those restaurants really well. Through her food, through her leadership and resilience, she's really bridging there's a story between memory and culture and the community that she creates so beautifully in our city. And her story isn't just about cooking, it's about belonging, it's about resilience, and today it's about rise to more. Welcome to the show, Anne Ahmed.
Thank you for having me. Yes.
It's such a treat. I was telling you earlier, we'll be going to Laat 14, and that's like one of our favorite places. And we're sitting in that little room they put us away with the kids.
Yeah.
And it's such a treat. We had my mom's birthday over there,
Oh, wow.
and to think that it was something so distinct about that place. The energy. I remember obsessing even over in the restrooms, how beautiful they were. And then the food was just so incredible. And now to actually meet you and understand more of your journey, I'm just really excited to have this conversation with you.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here.
So interestingly, before we even, before I got to know you a little bit more, I did not know that you were a former refugee. And as you know, I just told you I'm a former refugee as well. I'm really curious if you could tell us just a little bit about that story, and also if at any point you remember thinking about hope versus just survival. That's a really big theme for me, because I remember going through this and thinking, well, one day will be better. There has to be something else there for me.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I was a refugee at such a young age. Like my mom, I think even when you are uprooted from your home, it doesn't even have to be like out of your own country. Like she was uprooted in her home when she was a teenager. She was from the northern parts of Laos in a village called Siang Kuang. And so that's where she was born. That's where she was growing up until, like the Vietnam War that happened, and her family had to move into the cities to escape the bombing that was happening in her backyard. And so she was already a refugee then. It might not be out of her country, but from her home. And so then by the time she had me, like things are already pretty bad in our country of Laos. And so we left Laos when I was 2 years old, and we were in a Thai refugee camp for 2 years, and I was about four and a half. And then by the time I came to the U.S., and we were sponsored by my great uncle, who left Laos much earlier than we did. The role that he had and what he did back in Laos was his safety was at risk. So he was, obviously allowed into the U.S. a lot earlier than we were. And he was sponsored by a church in Winona in northern Minnesota. And when he was settled, and it took him about 10 years to get settled, then he sponsored the rest of us to come over. And in my so when you're in a refugee camp, they identify you as a family unit. That's like, and you have numbers. I know there's one of the first pictures my mom and I had together was the two of us, and we just had a number across our chest. That's how we were identified. And the reason why there's just only my mom and I is because my dad died when I was 18 months old. And so,
wow, Anne.
But yeah, so it was just my mom and I. But like to go back to like what the family unit is identify as when you're in these refugee camp is like, you're supposed to have, your mom and dad, your siblings and whatnot. But in my family unit, we were identified as my mom, myself, my great grandmother, and my grandma. So I was in a group of widowed women. So 3 widowed women and like I was not an infant, I was a toddler at that time. And so there was another sense of urgency. Well, like, these women they can't fend for themselves. So, so with being a refugee for only 2 years, that was considered expedited at that point.
Oh.
Or, there was many people that would, be in these refugee camps for many years, many years. Some stayed there until it was closed down, like, I don't know, over a decade. It's crazy. But yeah, so that was my family unit, and that's we got here to the U.S. and Minnesota was our home since.
A lot of strong women.
Yes, I mean, I think that I didn't realize it until probably much later in life. But yeah, that like I remember my mom telling me a story of like she didn't speak any English. You just get plucked out of your country and Minnesota is your home. She didn't know how to ask for a wheelchair because my great grandmother was she was paralyzed from her legs down, so she couldn't walk. And so she didn't know how to ask for a wheelchair. And she literally like threw my great grandmother on her back. And that's how back then you didn't have a tarmacs, like you didn't, that gate connector thing. You had to like deplane in the middle of the field of the airport and you had to walk in. And so I remember like that was her memory of arriving to the US, of having to carry my great grandmother on her back.
Oh my gosh, what an image to carry. And it's an interesting, I get very frustrated around the wars as having lived through war and being a refugee myself. It's always men playing war and women and children that suffer the most. So I get just shivers down my back because my father was sent to a refugee camp and it was my mom who sat on the balcony with a machine gun protecting her 3 children, hoping not to get raped or killed that night. So this female lineage, it's heartbreaking, but there's something really beautiful about that we carry that strength forward. Thank you so much for sharing that. That's really, really powerful. And then out of all the places in the world, you come to Minnesota.
Yes.
There must have been like a really big shock. So between, traveling or having that bridge between the two worlds and mixing the cultures, how did food make you feel at home in Minnesota? I'm curious.
I think a lot of it is trial and error. When you come into the U.S., at that time, like early 80s, like there's not much Asian grocery stores around and whatnot. So I remember my grandmother would just things that we would pick up at the church or people would drop off and whatnot. You kind of just play around with it. I think one of my earliest memory of being with my grandmother in the kitchen was like she got a packet of macaroni. Like she didn't know what to do with it. So she just boiled some chicken and made it into a soup. Obviously she, that became instead of using rice noodles or whatnot, it's like she thought she was very clever and she's like, oh, I made a soup and out of this box of stuff that they gave me. But yeah, it was a lot of trial and error. She repurposed a lot of things and she tried to make it as comforting for us as possible. She had her flavors down, whatever foreign ingredients that she had to work with. She knew the flavors that her family wanted, and she just wanted to make these comforting flavors with these foreign ingredients that she had to work with.
She made it work, right? I'm curious, how much of that has made an impact into you becoming this world-renowned chef right now? And also, reflecting a little bit of, I have a lot of friends from Laos, and now we have a really beautiful community and it's very well supported and lots of incredible food. How have you seen that shift in Minnesota?
I think we are a very lucky state and city to have the second largest Laotian community here. And with that, like you say, it's huge support. It's huge, strengths by the number in terms of the accessibility of many things, not only just the food, the grocery stores and whatnot, but the arts, the culture, the histories. We are very blessed to be in, Minnesota of all places that is so different than our birth country. But, we are very blessed to be here and, we made it our home. And I think that we feel very blessed that our community has embraced us. And, I can't say that about every other groups of refugees and immigrants here. But, I think that we were very lucky in a sense that Minnesota really embraced us.
Minnesota is really good that way. I found there's an incredible sense of comfort. And going back to really fishing for that grandmother and mother influence on you being a chef.
It's crazy because that was not what they were. That's not what their intention was, to influence me to be a chef. That was it, like when I verbally asked if that's the career path that I could have, it was a hard no, so it was like, nope, we didn't, to them. I think that the light that they saw what being a chef and a restaurateur was not the same light that it is what it is. For them, they just saw like long hours. They just saw a lot of very labor intensive, chores that you're doing. And I think, when you are living in a country like Laos, and what you identify success with is what you see on TV, men and women in an office in a suit and tie. And so that's how they gauge what success should look like, not in the kitchen in a dirty apron and working long hours. They wanted to see you, leave at 8 in the morning and come back and have dinner with them. That's what success looks like for, my mom and my grandmother.
Okay, so what happened? How did you get into the cooking? And how did you embark on this path?
Yeah, and I think because, like you said, what influenced me? I think it's because like what I really gravitated was towards their nurturing aspect of it. When my mom and my grandmother cooked, they cooked to take care of people, and it was mostly family, and I don't think that I made that connection as a child, but it was ingrained in me without me like consciously thinking about what was happening. But it's like I felt it was very rewarding to see the meals that my grandmother would cook, and the family and sitting around enjoying it, and the happiness that I saw. That was something that stuck with me, and that's something that I knew I wanted to do, that all I wanted to do was take care of people, to nurture people, to and to feel hospitable towards, no matter who showed up at the door. That was just one of the greatest things that my grandmother showed me, just without like verbally teaching me. It was just by observing her on the things that she did and how she took care of people. And it just became very natural to me. And it just was very comforting and very satisfying, and it brought joy. And so I just feel very blessed to be able to do it as a career, like to do something that I enjoy so much.
And you do it clearly so well, spectacular. I think the sense of, I wanted to tell you that a sense of welcome that one feels at every one of your establishments is palpable. And I think that that's a testament to the energy that you bring. I'm a big believer of like we bring the energy into the spaces, and to have that, and that's probably why all of your restaurants are so incredibly popular and loved by our community. I love that. One of the things that I'm observing in the world is our culture and identity can get so watered down, and we want to assimilate into the culture. I'm curious, how is it that you hold on to the heritage and the beauty of one's culture, even though it can get watered down in this world that goes so fast and wants to follow the latest trend?
I think that's always a challenge. I myself is facing that challenge because now I have two kids of my own, and you do feel the pressure of like, preserving the language. And that's often asked by my mom and my mother-in-law, because my kids were biracial, or because I'm Laotian and he is Bengali. So two different languages can be definitely spoken at home. But obviously my husband and I cannot communicate if we don't speak English.
I have the same problem.
Yeah. So I do have kind of like, this other kind of layer of pressure of like, okay, to hold on to these cultural identities and traditions and whatnot. But at the same time, I think every family is different, and I see how my cousins are raising their children, and I see how my friends are raising their children. And for me, it's just like, I think what I am most happy with is what works for my family, like in terms of, is it learning this language or this second or third language that we have the accessibility to, or is it, making sure that we fly out to New York to celebrate Ramadan and Eid every year with my in-laws, or is it making sure that the kids get to go to the temple with my mom here during New Year's and things like that? So it's like we try not to force it. We try to kind of like, how does it naturally fit into our lives? And I have come to accept that I myself, I'm not, I can't prove to anybody that I'm Laotian enough. Like when I have that struggle of when I travel back to Laos, am I trying to be somebody who I'm not? Because I'm a Laotian Minnesotan American, like that's a long thing to say, but that's really how I identify myself, because I'm not going to be Lao enough. I'm not going to be Minnesotan enough for my Minnesotan folks here. And I'm not going to be American enough. I don't, like who knows what characteristic is classified as an American. But for me, those are the three things that I am. And I try to leave a lot of space for my kids to form that themselves. And of course, as a parent, our responsibility is to really provide the resources and, and to guide them, but at the same time, give them space and the flexibility that hoping that they will, carve out their own identity when they're ready for that.
And man, that's a journey. That's a journey for all of us. You have been nominated for one of the most prestigious awards in terms of in your profession. It's such an incredible honor. And you're widely celebrated. Everywhere that I go, people speak your name and just with such a reverence. I'm curious, who is Anne?
I think that's, like even myself, that's hard, that's hard for me to answer because I still I feel like I'm still discovering, like I'm sitting here and about all these beautiful things that you're saying about me and all the praises. And I'm just like, I think it's still like kind of that refugee child that's kind of like, I don't, do I deserve that? I think there's still some of that doubt, some of that kind of like struggle of, can it really be me? Can I really succeed? Those are things that I still struggle with. I have come a long way. If we would have had this conversation 10 years ago, I would have been like, oh, yeah, really shy and kind of like not owning up to it. I've learned to own up to those things that I've accomplished that I've deserved. But I don't know that if it's something that is because of the post-traumatic of like my past, where I've come from, and being part of like an Asian female where we're not as celebrated as much because, and that's like kind of like the family background in terms of like, being in a Laotian household. These are the things that, like the women or female in our culture are always like subpar too. And so I think those are the things I'm still struggling with, and and I have like the best cheerleaders in my life, like my friends will always like tell me that and it's because I need that. Or else I forget. I'm just like, oh no, that's not me. That's nothing, but it is. These are huge accomplishments. And I think that to answer your question, I'm still trying to figure out who Anne is but I want the Anne to be the one that could be like, yes, that's me, that's me who got recognized for that. And so I'll eventually get there. It will take me some time and I'm okay with that.
So you're becoming.
Yes.
I love that. Well, interestingly, a lot of you talk about things that I think as women generally we feel there is a level of not enoughness and self-doubt, and worth is a really big conversation. For me, at least, that's something that I had to struggle with. So was it an immigrant or less than or whatever? Women are listening to this conversation, many, many, many of them. And if you had a piece of advice to a woman who is becoming, what would that be?
I think it is, it's okay to be scared. I think it's okay to be vulnerable. But yet at the same time, it's like, not giving up. I think that's what the thing is. I think it's, there has been so many no's in my life. It hasn't always been rosy and beautiful and every door opening. I mean, but there's a lot of no's. And I think you have to take those risks, and you have to like just get up and just keep going at it, because that's really what makes you get up out of bed to fight for it, because you want it so bad. And when you want something bad enough, I don't believe in that you could fail. There's no reason that you are going to fail if you want it so bad that you're going to work so hard for it.
You will find a way.
You will find a way, yes. And I mean, I feel like I'm a living proof of that, like I've been doing this for 20 years now, and there are many obstacles that I face, like since when I opened up my first restaurant in 2005, 2008, 2009, the recession hits. And then what happens? I open up Laat 14 in 2018. The pandemic happens in 2020. So there's been lots of like challenges and things that I would have given up by now, but it's like I believe in what I'm doing so much, and I want it so bad that I can't
you
ever
find a way. So when you go through those really difficult times, this is the thing that people, when they look at you, and I mean, I'm tickled that you're here. I'm just so incredibly excited that I'm sitting across from you. People look at you, the reverence, the respect. But when you go through those incredible hard times, everyone does. We just don't like to admit it.
Yep.
What do you do? What is your go-to to push through that, knowing that you're going to come out right on the other side?
For me, it's not even about like, that I'm going to come out okay on the other side, but it's like I have today. What can I do today that is going to, like to just keep me going? And it's like just one foot in front of the other. And it's like, if I can get out of bed, if I have like physically able, why can't I do something about it? It may be small, it may be big, but it's like if you actually took the action to do something, you're going to make a difference on whatever that obstacle is going to be.
Yeah, I tell people very often, when I remember coming into this country and going to a grocery store. I don't know if you had the same experience, but I looked at and mind, this is after years of going hungry, walked into a really big grocery store. I don't know which one it was. And there were over 200 cereal boxes, like aisles and aisles of cereal boxes. And I spent 40 minutes in there, walked out without having purchased anything because I was so overwhelmed. But a reminder of how good we have it here, at least for me, and that no matter what, there's always something to be grateful for and to work towards too, that I think very, very often people don't really understand that.
Yeah.
We get down on ourselves very often.
Yes.
You find something that you can look forward to. You said, as you're becoming and you're building and you're doing all of these things, I'm curious, what would be the highest expression of your life? If you and I could wave the magic wand and we say, well, here we go, Anne, it's all here. What would that be?
Oh my gosh, I don't know. I think to have more time. I don't know. There's just so much I want to do. And so many people I want to be with. And so it's like to stop time for a little bit, to enjoy something just a little bit longer.
You're aware of the passing of the time.
Oh, yeah.
So acutely. Isn't that funny?
Yes.
It goes by so incredibly fast. But it's such a beautiful answer.
Thank you.
Instead of getting to somewhere, it's just to be here a little bit more. I love that so much. And one of the things that I've observed, because I'm a foodie and I love going out and enjoying especially incredibly different food. You have really found a way to make everything palatable, yet really stay close to that heritage and to the flavors. How do you decide to try something new, right, and bring something new into the world, and yet really cling to that, what makes it so distinguished, and not turn it into fries and burgers, so to speak?
Yeah. I think it's, like the way that I have kind of, branded my restaurants is really about like, I only serve things that I want to eat and serve things that I crave. And I think that that's really what makes the brand really strong. It is because it's, like I hope that when people eat or choose to come into the restaurant, they have chosen to be like, their time. going back to that time thing, it's like that's the time that they want to spend with us. So how do we make it memorable? So I always like when I create a dish, it's like if somebody takes a bite of that and they don't remember anything about it or it didn't spark anything in their brain to be like, oh, this is amazing, then it shouldn't go on the menu. And so those are the things I keep in mind when I'm working with my chefs of what goes on the menu. But at the same time, it's like, my foundation will always be like Anne in terms of, this Laotian girl coming from, growing up in America. And so it's not going to be like 100% authentic, like I hate using that word. And I think it's finally people are not using it anymore. Like, I think when I was opening up my restaurant in the early years, it was the criticism I was always getting is like, well, it doesn't taste like my mom. It doesn't taste like my grandma. And it's like, well, your grandma and your mom is not here cooking it, and that's the joy of why everybody loved their grandma's and their mom's recipe. Cause it's not about the flavor. It's about you actually going home and you see them and you spend time with them and you're sitting there having a conversation. That's why it's never going to taste like your mom or your grandma, because those memories that are associated or those experiences associated with eating that thing is not going to be the same. And so for me, it's like, I want them to have the memory of eating at Laat 14. Like when you brought your mom in and you notice the ambiance, like all of those things trigger. And I think that's the fun part for me, to be able to put things and create spaces that evoke all of those feelings.
I love that. So you did face criticism from a cultural aspect. Like it's not Laotian enough.
Yeah, it's not Laotian enough, or it's like you call this authentic. You shouldn't call this, or I'm charging too much. Like I can get it at this place for this much, and and so there's always those challenges, but. It's fine because people are entitled to their opinions, and it also helps you grow as a person in terms of my husband especially loves to read all the reviews. And so,
oh boy.
Yeah. So that I don't know how anybody, people start their day with, he starts his day with like opening up Yelp reviews and Google reviews to see what kind of reviews the restaurant gets. But, I just take it as like, oh, that's great. We have a secret diner. It's an audit for us. How, how do we take that and improve our business? And then the ones that come and attack us personally, like you can call those out. Like, people who read this, they have common sense. If they're going to go there for the food and not about like these personal attacks, like, it is what it is.
Okay. Well, it is, but I think that is a testament or a signature of a true leader, of a true great, is that no matter what you do, you're always going to face resistance. No matter, I think I've learned that. I remember watching Wayne Dyer give a speech, and it was talking about love and loving others. And someone was like, well, who the heck he thinks he is to be talking about it? And I remember thinking, my gosh, it's not about him, it's about them. So there's an incredible amount of projection. And I think that in order to do something great and build something that you have to rise above that and find a way to find your own way. Mm-hmm. I'm curious, a lot of I love business, and a lot of the people listening to the podcast are entrepreneur, visionaries, the greats. They really want to rise to more. And when you are building something, we look at all the things that you've accomplished. Is there a formula that you follow? Is there like a business plan? Is there a visioning technique for you? Or is it just really one foot in front of the other?
I think it's a combination of all of those things, but I think for me is having that partnership. I have an amazing, incredible partner in my life, and that's my husband. And I think that, he allows me to dream and allows me to kind of go for it. And then with that, I get to kind of like just go all out in terms of the things that I want or how I envision things. Mm-hmm. And he pulls me back in like, okay, you could have some of this, or we have to cut this or whatnot. But I think when I create spaces and create menus, it's about like, I always describe it as like my growth in myself and where I am in life and what I'm looking for. And so, with Laat 14, it was my it was my first real restaurant. Like Lemongrass was just a place that I stumbled on, and it's like, you know, that excitement of being young and like finally getting to have a restaurant. And so a lot of, you know, I didn't really have a business plan. It was very emotional of a purchase. Like, you know, my mom said, yes, I'm going to do it kind of thing. And then Lat 14 was more calculated. And so, but for me, it was about like, it's time to grow your business. I have this partner who is going to support me in it, and I'm not going to be doing it alone. And so having that stability in my life made me create a bigger project. And so I think that that's how I looked at that.
The importance of having a partner in that process.
Exactly. Because it was huge, you know, like I didn't just take over a restaurant. We purchased the building. We tore it down and remodeled everything aside from the 4 walls that we had. So it was a lot of investment from, you know, our personal savings and no investors and things like that. So it was a huge risk. So we, obviously my husband and I really talked that through, but he believed in what the products I had at Lemongrass. He believed in my vision of like the suburbs really needing a sexy like restaurant to eat at. And so, yeah, I mean, that's...
You sure delivered. You sure delivered. I love that. So to build something great, the partnership, the having the vision, you mentioned risk. You mentioned sometimes you just do it, that it happens by accident. Sometimes there's a bit more strategy involved. But risk has to be inherent. Like it's almost always there. You have to trust yourself enough. Like you said, I have to want it and also trust your own vision. So for someone who has an idea or who is wanting to pivot and they really want to do something great, what would be your advice or your strategy if you have to start all over again? Would you follow a particular strategy now that you know?
I think it's like, you know, for me, it's about like, you know, the first question I ask is that, is this something that if I was a consumer and not a builder and not a maker, would I want it? And so if you want it, then you obviously can sell that to anybody because you feel that they need that. They need to have that as a part of their life. Is there a need for it in this world? Is there a need for it in this community? And so it's like, if whatever it is that you're selling, if there's a need for it. And then there's like, obviously lists of questions and lists of struggles so it's like, you know, that's the exercise that my husband and I always do. And I don't think we do it on purpose. We just do it because we're always trying to create something. It's kind of like, who needs it? Who wants it? What about this? What about that? So it's like asking those hard questions. And, you know, then you once it gets to the next step, then you get like a smaller group of people that you trust that's going to be honest with you. Like, would you want this? What are your thoughts on this? Because those are also going to end up being your consumers. Those are going to be your clients. They're going to be the one wanting your product. If they don't want it, there's no like purpose, there's no reason to go to the next step of continuing this idea. So it's like, usually that's where our ideas start and formulate. It's like, we ask ourselves, do we even want this? If there's no need for us to want it, then there's no reason to go take the next step, take the risk for it.
That is one of my favorite answers I've ever heard to that question. I love that. But it kind of...
I don't sound very professional, but it's just like that's...
I think it's beautiful. I absolutely love the way you put that. And in reality, if you want it, if you love it, if you're excited about it, you're going to be able to translate it. The same with the food that you like, not because the grandma made it that way, but because I like it and I really want to talk about it and can promote it. I absolutely love that. I'm curious, what are you most proud of?
Gosh, that's a hard one. I think it's, you know, why I find it hard is because you're asking me to talk about myself again in that way.
Welcome to the podcast.
Yeah. I mean, I think maybe we need to have somebody to come and help with that. But no, what am I proud of? I think I'm proud of like being able to grow as a person, being able to recognize my mistakes and, you know, simple things as just being able to slow down. I think that, you know, like for so many years of my life, I was go, 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 that I didn't really get to slow down, enjoy the simple things in life, and to appreciate, like, once again, time. I don't know what it is about me with time right now. It's like, I just feel that, you know, time is so important and I'm not giving it the time it needs to just like be in place of certain things. But yeah, I think I'm just proud of, being able to realize these things and not just rushing a lot of things and not like just and not really like just allowing myself to be in the space where I need to be, and giving myself that grace and giving myself that kind of ability to just turn off for a little bit sometimes.
I really want our audience to zero in on this and pay attention to it, because the conversation that I have with the greats and the people that come on the podcast, or the people that I currently have in my circle that I work with, when we get what we want to get past the necessities and past some of the success, it really is about how are we spending our time and the quality of our time with our loved ones. And I wish we all had enough money, right, to understand that it's really about how do I enjoy this little short life that I have, because it goes by so fast. And I don't know about you, but I see it through my children. I was telling my son earlier today, I'm like, my gosh, yesterday I brought you home and today you're helping me with my podcast. Like it's just incredible how fast it really goes.
Yeah.
And it's, I think, very, 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 humbling. I absolutely love that. The people that very often may feel unseen, women, Asian women, immigrants, refugees, anyone who feels different, less than. What's one thing that you really want them to know, even though you're still becoming, in those early stages, in the early years when they're still really heavily doubting themselves?
I think it would be to really allow your voice to like be heard, to like to speak up, and now I think that the women in today's world, they say it so well, like allow yourself to take up space. And like before, I was that person where I'm just hiding in the corner. I like to just blend in. I like to just not be seen. And so and that's the I feel like that's some of my regrets. And, and when coming back to your question of like, what am I proud of? I'm proud that I overcame that. It's taken a long time. And so hoping that the younger generation right now are listening, and I hope that they take this, because you do miss out when you are not taking up space, when you are not heard, when you're just blending in the background, you miss out. And it goes back to time again, because what if you didn't miss out those things? You would have had more time to enjoy. You would have had more of, time to slow down, because you weren't trying to make up those things. And so I think if you have that opportunity to like speak up and to be seen, you take it and don't be afraid of it.
Wow, you heard it here first, folks. I love that answer so incredibly much. And I think that, especially from someone like you, it will really make an impact and it will land, because when we look at our idols and people that we deeply respect and admire, when we hear from them, there's an incredible energy. There's an incredible, I think something stirs up in us to really make a difference or change it. Speaking of, I'm curious, who inspires you, or who is the kind of your mentor, your guide, someone that's there to lift you up? And
I mean, I wish I had like, this really fancy person to say, but I think it's like, this may sound cheesy, but you know what? It's really my husband. He is like my biggest cheerleader, my biggest, like, he brings me so much happiness and joy, because, like that's all he wants to do is make me happy and make me feel confident. And I think it's, whoever that person is in your life, and it doesn't have to be like, I'm lucky that he's my husband, but there's always that somebody in your life. And I feel like you should really appreciate them and show them that. And, but yeah, I mean, I wish it was like a fancy person. I know, but my husband's not as fancy, but he's just, he's my greatest supporter, and he believes in everything that I And I don't know why, but yeah, it just happens to be him.
That is the most perfect answer. Why would it not be our spouses? Why would it not be our moms? Why would it not be our children, right? It's like it's the people that really hold that space for us. And I love that for you. And in a world where marriage is transient and relationships are not as strong as they used to be, to hear that is a testament. I'm such a big believer. I've been married for 19 years. And I would say probably the same thing about my own husband, like someone who just wants to see you win.
Yes.
And that's rare and it's incredibly beautiful. So here's to our husbands if you're watching.
Yes.
I love that. I went down the rabbit hole and read and watched about one of your the trip back to Laos. And you said that it forever changed you.
Mm-hmm.
And I would love for you to talk a little bit after, having been in Minnesota and going back. What was that like? And why? What was the moment? Was there a moment where just things shifted for you? That you saw things differently on your path of becoming?
I don't know if I can identify a particular thing or an incident, but it's more kind of like after several of these trips, it was kind of like the struggle with, when I'm here, when I'm here in Minnesota in America, I feel that, like I'm not American enough. Like there's, I'm going to always be walking around and I look like the way I look. I'm always going to look Asian. I'm going to, most people don't know the difference between a Lao person and a Cambodian person. So, but being able to go back to Laos was like, then I had a different struggle of like, okay, why is it that the native Lao people can automatically tell that I'm not from there? It's like, oh, you must be from abroad. So it's very obvious. So then I'm like, okay, where do I belong? I go to Laos. I'm not Lao enough. When I'm in America, people talk to me in a really slow manner because they're afraid that I don't understand English.
I'm sorry, I'm laughing, but that's happened to me way too often.
And then I'm like, okay, so I think that was like my biggest struggle. But the more that I went back and the more people that I connected with, then I realized it was really me. It's me and about like this. I put up this wall myself and that was my way of thinking that that's how they saw me, or I interpreted their perception of me. But once I got to know the people and had relationships with the people there, then it was like they embraced the fact that I am this Lao person living abroad and that I am, and they have things that they want to learn from me and things that they want to share with me and things that I want to learn from them. So it became like a more friendly approach and it wasn't so daunting and it wasn't so intimidating. And so then it became more familiar. Then it's like I got to experience Laos the way it is today. Like I can't go back and live it during its wartime days. And it's not to say that that's not important, that should be forgotten. But it's like I want to have a different relationship with Laos the way it is and the people that are there now. And that it is, and how can I contribute to like do my part in terms of like who can I help and what can I do to uplift the people there. And that to same, like it's having this bridge of like the Lao people that lives in Laos and the Lao people that lives here in America. Like how can we make it more normalized that we're still people in this world and we belong on the same planet, and these lines and these countries that divide us, like, and so it was just me in terms of like my negativity towards not being American enough, not being Lao enough. And so I think that was like, once I realized that, then it's like, I was happier. I was enjoying my trips. I was looking forward to meeting more people. And so, yeah.
And I heard Laos is beautiful. And one day I hope to visit it with my children. We love to travel, so we'll add it to our bucket list. I think out of that, you're telling me that there came the idea of bring people back to Laos and have them experience the culture, have them experience the beautiful people and the food. And you have, I believe, a trip coming up. I would love to know, like, what sparked this idea of this trip, and also what will that look like? Because I'm tempted to go today.
Yes, you should totally come. But yeah, this came out of like my wild and fun, crazy ideas. I was thinking that this could be something I could do when I retire, like when I don't want to be as active in the restaurant, that, like I would love to lead a trip to Laos with like Americans or whoever wanted to come with me. And so, but then the opportunity came a lot sooner. And it was like last year that earlier this year, January of 2025, which was a couple months ago, I was able to take my first group. So, but yeah, I mean, I have been dreaming about this for so many years, and it was more about like, when I meet people at the restaurant and they have gotten to know my food, they have gotten to know me as a chef and as a person, and they're more curious about like, what more is there to Anne? And it's like, well, I want to go experience Laos. And so that's where it came from. Like, okay, well, if I love hosting people. What if I was able to host you in a whole nother country and show you like the Laotian hospitality and show you where I get my inspiration, and to show you what kind of like stepping into back in time would look like, because that's really what Laos is, in this magical town of Luang Prabang, which is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Everything is preserved, everything is peaceful, everything is quiet, everything is slow. And so it's like, for me, I feel like when I get to go back to Laos, it's my meditation. It's like the host city is like a meditation room where you really just like slow down and you listen to the sounds, like the monks that are chanting and the almsgiving that happens in the morning. And so it's very therapeutic. This trip has been very therapeutic for me, even before I brought my group. And so it's been so much that's why it inspired me to be like, well, I want to bring people with. I want people to experience this on their own.
Upcoming trip, I'm curious, that sounds so idyllic and so beautiful and so peaceful, that stepping back in time, I think it's this fight against the grind and the chaos and the noise of the world. So what will that give us? A little bit more of insight? What will that feel like? What will that, when you take people, like what part of it is you introduce them to the culture? What part of it is food? Will there be visits to the monasteries? Will there be, dancing? Like all of the things.
All of the things, yes. One of the things that I have changed up the itinerary from this past January for the new one is going to be a breakfast tour. And it's not just a tour, it's like a breakfast that I have broken down. And every day you're going to have a breakfast in a different way, in terms of visiting the street vendors and having breakfast on the streets, or visiting my favorite noodle shop, or you're going to be cooking at the morning market and having your own breakfast there. And so these are the things that I really wanted to be very immersive and experience in a way where you're doing it with the locals. And so that is one of the experiences that I curated on the trip. And then also, I have this thing for elders. I have great respects for elders. All I ever want to do is just sit down and just chat with them for hours. And so I was able to work with my friend who is in Laos. And I was like, will you please recruit some elders that we can hang out with? And so we will be making an offering flower arrangement with the elders. So basically, imagine if I had 5 grandmas living in Laos, you would be able to meet them all, and they would be teaching us how to make these, these offerings that we will then go to the temple, and we will be able to have a ceremony there, and then stay and have lunch while the monks, provide us with teachings. And so that was one of the things that I am so proud of, to be able to have these connections with native Lao people who wants to share. And it's something that I couldn't have not done on my own. And so that's one of the experience. And then another thing is, I love handicraft. I love artisans that make and create things. And, I don't want you to just buy something. I don't want you to be like, Jasna, here, you should buy this scarf. I want you to be like, well, let's go to the village and let's meet the maker of this, and let's see her story of why she's making this, and how did she learn this craft, and what is this craft doing for her. So that's another really fun thing that I'm excited about. And just and I want people to see Laos in a different light. Of course, everybody could just Google it, an itinerary, they show up on their own. But what I hope to accomplish from my group is that you get a lot of personal connections and a lot of things that you normally wouldn't have done if you just Google something and you just show up and you did your little walk around the monument and then you're done for the day. It's not about that.
Well, that's the best way to see the culture. I mean, you travel quite a bit. You want to know someone there, someone who's connected to the community, so you can really truly experience it, not have the tourist version of it. Because I know when every time I go to Bosnia, I want to make sure my husband has an experience that's really grandma like, right?
Yes.
The heart and soul of the
Yes.
culture. So is this something that we can sign up for right now? And when is the trip?
So the trip is going to be for January 2026.
Okay.
And so the date is it's towards the end of January. So you would be leaving Minnesota around January 23rd. And then it's for 10 days. And those 10 days include like the travel dates. Unfortunately, it does take about almost 2 days to get there. But I'm working with Peak Travel Company and they are based out in Wayzata.
I love
So
them.
they will take, Peak is amazing. They will take care of all the flight stuff. All you have to do is just sign up and everything's taken care of. I will be with you the entire time as your host. And you know, like, Asia's really hot right now in terms of like the White Lotus effect. Everybody wants to go to Asia. So a lot of hotels that are booked. And so, yes, you can still go to Thailand and experience the White Lotus, but I know that you're going to want some peace and quiet in Laos. And so you could still see Thailand and then come to Laos and then do this tour with me. And I've already secured a beautiful hotel for us. It's part of the Amman collection. It's the Amantaka.
Oh, I love Amman.
Yes. And it just adds to more of this magic of what this beautiful city of Luang Prabang. We will be there for 6 nights and they take such good care of us. Like they do an amazing job. Like everything is taken care of for us.
I love that so much. Are children welcome?
Yes, they are.
Okay, that's good. That's good to know. Are your children coming?
My kids are not coming this time. I did the trial run with them. So they got to experience all of this before I brought my first group.
I love that. You know, I love even the way you're describing it. And we're gonna check the dates. If we're available, I really want to come because there's heart and soul and so much more than a trip. It's a journey.
It
And-
is,
and
yes.
Getting to know the culture from that vantage point is just so beautiful. There's something so spiritual about you, and when you talk about Laos, would you call yourself a spiritual person?
I would say so. I think, you know, like spiritual, and I just want to be around good energy. And I think it starts, you know, like it's important that it starts with that person. And so I hope I just like, you know, exude good energy so that people wants to be around me. And that, you know, if anything, having my presence just a little bit of lightens their day. Like that's all that would I would need. So
What is a life well lived, Anne?
a life well lived is knowing that whatever happens tomorrow, you're okay with it. Like you just live every day with dignity, with pride, with like, you know, with goodness. And so knowing that, you know, if you don't have tomorrow, you're okay. Like, I think that is a life well lived.
You're such a kindred spirit. I love that so much. How did we not meet before? I love that. I'm curious, what does it mean for you to rise to more?
To rise to more would be whatever that decision is it something that I'm going to be proud of? Is it, you know, now that I'm a mom, is that something that I want to leave behind for my kids? Is that something that is, you know, a legacy, or if it's something that's just, you know, what's the light that I want them to see me in?
And what do you want your legacy to be, Anne Ahmed?
Just to be a good person, just to know that, you know, I helped people. I've made a difference in big or small to people that I have crossed paths with. So,
I love
yeah.
that. Well, people are going to obsess over you, especially after this conversation. Where can people find you? Of course, they can come to Kaluna, Gai
Yes.
Noi, Laat 14. We're going to put the links for all of those restaurants in the show notes. But where do you like to interact with the wider audience? Where can they find you, or where can they find the information about the trip?
Yes. So I can share the link with you, and then that could live on
In the show notes?
yeah. my Instagram. So I try to be active on my Instagram because I think that that's a really great platform for me to really engage with my guests, my audience, and my like my friends are on there. I feel like when you and I feel like I know this is our first like meeting aside from meeting at Gai Noi. Like I feel like we're friends, and so I hope that life is busy, but I feel that the things that I put on Instagram are things that are really real and things that just to share a little bit about what's happening in my day, or just to like something that will hopefully will brighten your day in terms of like me running around like the greenhouse looking for plants or something like that.
I saw that today, and that's so exciting. So we're going to add all of those links in the show notes. And I just may be coming back. We may have to have you back in the show if I go to Laos, and we're going to be talking about that trip. Here I am building a quantum bridge, making a reality. And thank you so much for coming to talk to me. And I really appreciate more than anything who you are in your becoming. And I think that having accomplished everything that you have and providing us with such warmth and comfort in our state, I want to thank you for being a light in this world and for sharing your gifts and your precious time with me and with the world.
Well, thank you, Jasna, for having me. Like, I really appreciate this. I appreciate you taking the time to really getting to know me and to allowing me to have this voice.
It's such a pleasure. Well, there you go, folks. This was such a phenomenal, for me, conversation. I don't even know what my makeup looks like, but I've teared up probably about 10 times. I've been very profoundly moved by many things that Anne has shared in this interview. So I hope that you're going to follow her, that you're going to connect with her, and that you'll always remember to rise to more.